Yep.
That was the absolute best first attempt at anything here, I think.
Yeah, but you're getting good.
And I'm not going to get that one any better.
You're getting good at it. It's becoming something you're doing almost twice a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never know, after 10,000 hours, I might become something.
Yeah, I think it's going to be less than that. 10,000 hours is too long. All right. We're rolling. So
Yeah, I know. I'm just preparing. That's where the magic happens, in preparation. No, oops, maybe start the camera. Hi, and welcome to Hedge Fund Investor. I'm Karl-Mikael Siding. Today I want to talk about the P equals F times V model. What is it really, and how does it work? Why do I use it so much? There are several levels to what price equals fundamentals times valuations actually mean. So the basics is about you buying a share. What is a share? Well, it's a share in the company that you're buying. So it's a part of it. That's why it's called a share. So you get a share of Apple if you buy a share in Apple or of Apple. So this is the absolute basics of value-based investing. And valuations and estimating value, it's about estimating the profits, the value creation of the company. So Apple is taking in raw material and raw talent, and they are designing, creating phones, and then they are distributing them, selling them, marketing them to clients. The clients pay for them, and Apple is collecting whatever the difference between costs and incomes are, and that's their earnings. And you, as a shareholder, you are entitled to a share of those profits. So, and the value of your share is the sum of all those profits. The problem with equities and shares is that there's a disconnect here, because you don't actually own the entire company. So you don't know when you'll get the profits, and you can't control what happens to the money and the cash flows within Apple. So you just have to wait for getting dividends, but those are usually pretty tiny compared to the entire value of your share or the company. And that means that you don't you in part rely on the dividends, but that's just a tiny part. And then you rely on somebody else wanting to buy your shares. That would be the market, other investors. And they have the same problem. They face the same problem. They also look at Apple, the company, but they also look at Apple, the share, because they know that that is what they have to sell in their turn to the next investor. And so the P equals F times V model, it takes into account these two facets of investing. One, the fundamentals, it's the actual company and its profits and cash flows. And then it's V, valuation, which in effect consists of other investors and the market. And you have to analyze both these aspects of the company and its share. So how is this possible? How can you, I mean, this is an actual investment that I did early 2025. You can see all my purchases down here at around 150, and then you see the price skyrocketing to 10 times that in just 1 month. You can also see the timings here of buying and selling at a huge profit here, but obviously, or apparently after the fact, way too early, still getting in again, and somehow selling at the peak and then repeating this and buying very close to the bottom. So how is this even possible? Well, it really isn't, at least not using a fundamentals value-based model only. You have to also analyze what other investors are doing. You have to both use FA, fundamental analysis, and TA, technical analysis, in order to be able to do these things. And you still, of course, would have to have a lot of luck to be able to do timing like this. Anyway, so what we're talking about here when it comes to public equity investing, it's a combination of reality and dreams. It's fundamentals and fantasy. It's actual accounting facts and the valuation of those facts. So you have the underlying facts of running companies, of building patents, of consumer trends, of scale effects for huge companies compared to small companies. And then you have to understand the news cycle and the public narrative and how people are reacting to the news. Sometimes good news is bad news, and sometimes good news is good news. And you also have to take account into, not least, investors, this group and herd psychology. And it's not only about what they want to do and how good they feel, it's also about how much or easy access to money and financing do they have. Is it easy to borrow money? And our lenders, our banks, are they tough or slack when they are providing those loans? So do they want to lend out money, and do borrowers want to borrow money in order to buy stocks? So we have several interlocking factors here. We have trends in fundamentals that can be analyzed. We have trends in risk tolerance or risk aversion that can be analyzed. We have trends in lending and borrowing. We have trends in valuations. So the very valuation multiples themselves are sometimes elevated in general or depressed in general, or trending upwards or downwards. And we have trends in the types of storytelling that's accepted. For example, sometimes creating investment companies with very many different companies within them, conglomerates, is trending, and sometimes dividing and cutting up these conglomerates into smaller companies and separately listing them. Sometimes that is trending. And coming back to the idea of timing, so you have the actual investing and you have the timing. So value investing, that's absolutely not about day trading. You can't day trade based on values. Value investing actually works over several years and decades just because it doesn't work, because it isn't reliable over mere quarters or single years. Because of these trends, the actual underlying value is ignored for long periods of time, and that is what creates the opportunities for value investors. But that also means that we need to suffer through long periods where our analysis doesn't really work. So this is where the patience comes in, and also, of course, the skill of making the right conclusion, drawing the right conclusions and making the right analysis. So, very importantly, remember that in the short term, the connection between the company fundamentals and the stock prices, it's tenuous at best. It's weak. You can't really rely on it, not for day trading. But in the long term, the connection is absolute. It's the only thing that matters. In the long run, if you actually own the entire company, then you will get the value that it creates, not the valuation that it might have had temporarily. So how do we get better at this? We simply do case after case, step by step toward understanding and skill. So this is Tesla's share price over the last 5 years. In a way, it looks impossible to analyze, and in another way it looks almost easy after the fact. And the only way to get good at this and to actually improve your skill in this is to do one more, and one more. Just practice on different stocks. In the beginning, it will be very superficial and not really worth anything. But over time, you will get better and better and be able to rank how good your research is in various companies. And that's it. That's the basics of P equals F times V, and just one more philosophy of getting better at stock research. That should be it for that one.
See how